In the 18th century, Afro-Argentines, who are black people in Argentina, were a significant part of the population, making up 37% of the total. However, by 1857, their numbers had dropped to just 15%. Today, only 5% of Argentina's population is black, which is the lowest among all Latin American countries. This drastic reduction raises the question of what led to the decline and near eradication of the black population in Argentina. To put it simply, over time, the black population in Argentina significantly decreased, and today it's quite rare to find black Argentines in various fields like sports, journalism, and politics. But why did this happen? So first of all, let's see the history of Afro-Argentines. The history of Afro-Argentines dates back to the 16th century, when African people, often in chains, were brought to Argentina as slaves. This occurred shortly after the founding of Buenos Aires, the capital city of Argentina, where trade was a major economic activity. Over the years, the number of slaves being traded in and out of Buenos Aires increased significantly. By the 1600s, the slave trade industry had grown to such an extent that around 70% of all trading activities in Buenos Aires involved the importation of slaves from Africa. Eventually, the trading of slaves became a legalized practice in Argentina, continuing well into the 1800s. While the transatlantic slave trade in Argentina officially came to an end in 1813, the institution of slavery persisted until 1853, when it was eventually abolished. Today, when we look at Buenos Aires with its impressive architecture and structural beauty, it's hard to imagine the city's dark past during the years of the black slave trade. This period significantly increased the black population in the colony. According to data from the 1778 census, conducted by the Spanish colonial masters, approximately 30% of the population in Buenos Aires was black. By the time slavery was finally abolished in the 19th century, black people made up 1/3 of Argentina's population, with many being descendants of former slaves and some still in bondage. The black community not only thrived, but also left a profound impact on Argentine culture, influencing elements like the popular tango musical style and dance, which have their roots traced back to the African country of Angola. But what was the reason for the disappearance of the Afro-Argentines? The belief that Argentina lacks black ancestry or heritage may seem consistent with a country that often emphasizes its whiteness. However, this belief presents a logical conundrum when considering claims of the erasure of black history in Argentina. If it's asserted that black people never existed in the country, how could they have disappeared? Some individuals may remain ignorant of the facts regarding Afro-Argentine history, but this ignorance doesn't negate the existence of a black community in Argentina, which was systematically erased from historical records, especially around the early 20th century. Rather than black people vanishing from Argentina's historical account, they were deliberately written out of it. The crucial question then becomes how this erasure of an entire racial population from history was accomplished. The history of Argentina's Afro-descendant population is a topic that sparks curiosity, prompting many to seek answers about their disappearance. Various explanations have been proposed, some more satisfactory than others, to account for the vanishing of the black community in Argentina. This disappearance occurred through a combination of different methods, some circumstantial and others intentional, which together provide a comprehensive explanation of how Argentina effectively erased its black population from historical records. These methods fall under the overarching concept of whitening, which involves reimagining a race toward whiteness. The underlying idea is that societal privileges favor white people over those of other races, even when exposed to the same social, economic, and political conditions. This ideology suggests that black people are considered inferior to whites, and it implies that through intermarriage and birthing lighter-skinned children, black genes would gradually fade, bringing them closer to the white racial standard. Initially, the term whitening in Argentina was less about skin color and more about encompassing an overall attitude and cultural behavior. However, both interpretations ultimately led to discriminatory behavior by white Argentines towards those who were not white. Regardless of the underlying issues of inequality and racial discrimination, it is clear that the Argentine government embraced and implemented this ideology. Unfortunately, looking back, it is apparent that Argentina has undergone a process of whitewashing, where the emphasis on becoming more white has played a significant role in shaping the country's demographics and attitudes. The black population and the Argentine Wars. This is one of the reasons for erasing black people. For nearly a decade, the Argentine War of Independence raged on, commencing in 1810 and culminating in Argentina's liberation from Spanish rule in 1816. During this turbulent period, it's conceivable that black individuals, who were still enslaved at the time, were compelled to join the front lines of battle, bearing a disproportionate burden of casualties. One remarkable figure among these slave soldiers was Maria Remedios de Val, who fought alongside her husband and sons in the Argentine Independence War. Initially, one prevalent theory regarding the vanishing of black history in Argentina revolved around the notion that the 18th century wars claimed the lives of many black men, comprising a significant portion of the black population. While it's true that black lives were lost in the various conflicts, attributing the disappearance of blacks in Argentina solely to these events is an oversimplification. This is because even after the abolition of slavery in 1853, the black population still accounted for about 1/3 of the country's total population. The notion that the wars were solely responsible for the significant decline in Argentina's black population after the 1800s appears unlikely. Such sensationalized accounts should be taken with caution, especially when historical records have been altered, rendering them less reliable. Some people believe in this exaggerated version as the explanation for the fading of the black population in Argentina. Unfortunately, very little is known about the status of the black population in Buenos Aires and Argentina after the war. It seems that the government regarded them with such neglect that they were deemed too insignificant to be included in the national census. Whether the black population was genuinely that low or if it was simply overlooked remains a question. This oversight might have been the initial act that later evolved into racial profiling. Regardless, if the black population did indeed decline due to the wars, although this claim lacks statistical support, it serves as further evidence of Argentina's deliberate intent to erase its black history. In essence, this highlights the idea that violence originates in one's intentions before it manifests in actions. The decline in the number of black men, who had previously constituted a significant part of Argentina's black population, resulted from their losses in wars. This shift led to a disproportionate gender ratio, with more black women than men. Consequently, interracial marriages became more common in Argentina. With fewer black men to marry, black women faced a choice between Argentine men and the remaining African men. Some migrated to nearby countries like Brazil, leading to the theory that blacks sought acceptance elsewhere. However, this theory alone is insufficient to explain the complete erasure of the black population from Argentina's history. Another subtle method employed by the Argentine government to remove traces of blackness from its history was the promotion of European immigration. Statistics reveal that 2/3 of Argentina's population can be linked to European immigration. In the 19th century, following the wars, Argentina actively called for European immigrants, possibly due to its reduced population. While the country had abolished slavery and welcomed immigration without barriers, this open-door policy appeared suspicious. Argentina likely intended for European immigration to contribute to the whitewashing of its history. The influx of European immigrants increased the white population, diluted the black population, and eventually gave rise to a new mixed-race community. Nevertheless, this shift toward a whiter Argentina inevitably led to racial profiling in a nation deeply proud of its European heritage. The new generation born from interracial marriages in Argentina was labeled non-whites, a superficial term that reflected the government's denial of the country's racial diversity. Argentina effectively placed these non-whites on a social ranking slightly above pure blacks but below whites. Interracial marriages played a pivotal role in this process, serving as a metaphorical whitening cream, allowing individuals to climb the social ladder. Faced with discrimination and a lack of rights, black individuals had limited opportunities for education, access to health care, and social advancement. Health challenges, including higher infant mortality rates among black children, further contributed to the decline of the black community in Argentina. Children born of mixed white and non-white parentage were perceived as somewhat whiter due to their lighter skin tone, which granted them access to rights exclusive to whites. As a result, their social status improved, and they faced less discrimination. This complex set of circumstances led to a gradual loss of black identity, not only in terms of genetic makeup and skin color, but also in consciousness. Today, the fact that 90% of Argentina's population identifies as white is indicative of the erasure of Afro-Argentine ancestry, with many Argentines unaware of their own heritage and unable to trace their connections to Afro-Argentines. And lastly, we see the Argo-Argentines today. The extent of racial discrimination that has fueled Argentina's erasure of its black history is truly astonishing, and its consequences have resonated across generations. While the lives of black individuals were lost, so too were black consciousness and the records of their contributions to history. In more recent times, with the resurgence of the black community in the 20th century, Afro-Argentines have been steadfastly working to reintroduce and preserve the black narrative in Argentine history by sharing their stories. A significant milestone was reached when November 8th was officially designated by Argentine legislation to honor Maria Remedios de Val, the Afro-Argentine soldier who fought during the Argentine War of Independence in the 1810s. Since 2013, November 8th has been celebrated as the National Day of Afro-Argentines and African Culture, providing a day for Argentina to revisit and celebrate its African roots. However, the question of whether Argentina is truly a white country persists. This question doesn't have a black and white answer, but what is certain is that white Argentina will find it challenging to completely erase the black footprints from its historical records, which is a positive development, especially for Afro-Argentines who have been denied their rightful place in the ancestral narrative. Well, that's all it for today. If you found this video knowledgeable, don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to stay engaged with more fascinating stories from around the world.